Welcome to the Empowerment Show with Melissa Heisler on the Linked Local Network. Link locally, connect globally. Every week, discover new personal choices with practical, inspiring guides. And now, here's Melissa.
Well, happy Tuesday all, and welcome to the Empowerment Show. I'm Melissa Heisler, empowerment coach from It's My Life, and it is your life. Live it. Today I'm joined by Catherine Johns, and many of you local Chicagoans will know her very well. We're going to talk about lighting up the room. So if you would like to join our conversation, you can post your questions at facebook.com/theempowermentshow. So local Chicagoans, you may remember my guest, Catherine Johns, as a news anchor and reporter, talk show host, and morning show sidekick at WLS and WJMK FM. She learned to tell a story, engage an audience, and dance with unexpected working.
Dance with the unexpected, it should
dance
say.
Dance with the unexpected. See, I can't read.
Working alongside those big names in radio, right? Fred Winston, Larry Lujack, John Landecker. That was a very cool career.
And you know, let's just get into this,
right.
Because I would love you talk about moving from the boys' club of broadcasting into the world of business.
Yeah.
And now becoming a communications skills coach and consultant. Can you tell us a little bit about what that transition was like, and what did you learn from those years in the boys' club?
So I learned in the boys' club how to tell a story, how to listen, how to juggle a lot of balls in the air at the same time, and a lot of egos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how to tell a story for impact, because Larry Lujack was a master at that.
Mm-hmm.
And how to shut up, which is the hardest thing for people in radio. He was a master at that, too, better than anybody, at saying just enough and then zipping it. And that's part of the thing that I work with my clients on today, right? Everybody wants to talk all the time. They're giving a talk or they're doing a sales presentation, and they go blah, 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 until people's eyes glaze over.
Right.
So I talk about the Lujack lesson, right, which is 18 seconds and then zip it.
And what I think is just amazing is that with all those years in radio, as I'm sitting with you today, we're having a conversation. You are so engaged in the conversation with me, engaged eye to eye. I would have assumed there was the whole microphone stuck in a booth separation thing going on.
No, radio is really all about conversation, and it's a really intimate medium. I mean, you know that from doing this show, that people who listen to a radio show bond with the host in a way that's a little different, I think, from television or other, movies or anything else. And part of that is because you're with people when they're by themselves, right? They're in the car driving home, and there you are, riding along. And people get really connected. I have been out of radio, Melissa, for years. And there isn't a week that goes by that somebody doesn't come up to me and talk to me. Not only, they don't just say, I used to listen to you. They say stuff like, I called your show one time. Do you remember we talked about, and they'll go on and tell the story about a conversation we had in 1992, for crying out loud. Isn't that interesting?
It is very personal, and obviously it's something they took to heart.
Yeah, it makes an impact for sure.
And now you're venturing from the world of radio into being an author, and you have a new book out.
I do. How cool is that?
It is totally cool. I'm very, very excited, and thank you for my copy tonight. I appreciate it. The book is called Show Up and Shine, Simple Steps to Boost Your Confidence and Charisma. And do you want to talk a little bit about the book and how it came about?
No, don't make me talk about my book. We authors hate to talk about our book.
Exactly.
So here's the scoop on the book. I have been speaking for a while, even before, when I was still in radio, I did a little bit of that. Then when I became a presentation skills coach, I did a little bit of that. Now I've really tried to create a career as a speaker and coach. And it's very clear that having a book is a benefit.
Yes.
So
I always say it's the business card of the...
It really is. And given a choice, people will hire the speaker who is the author of something. So that's really why I wrote the book. It's not that I was dying to write a book. I'm really a talker, not a writer. And When I wrote my book, I was part of a coaching program that was run by Suzanne Evans, who is kind of a kick-ass business coach, and Larry Winget, the pit bull of personal development. And writing a book was an assignment for that. And they suggested a 25,000-word book because you could read it in about an hour and a half. You could pick it up at O'Hare, and it would be read by the time you get to Atlanta. Okay. Hooray. That's the kind of book in the realm of business and self-help books. That's what people read now.
Okay.
Attention spans are short.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we set out to write 25,000 words. Most of my colleagues in the coaching program were agonizing about what to leave out. Meanwhile, I was going, oh, my God. I was in radio for 25 years. Ask me about anything, and I can give you a good 25 seconds on it, with room at the end to say Catherine Johns, WLS News. But a book, 25,000 words, I didn't have that many words about anything. It was really a challenge. And as you saw, my book is short, pithy, to the point, very practical, and loaded with good stuff, but there's no fluff there.
Oh, right. And you did give me an e-copy beforehand, so I have gone through it as well. And I actually think it is a strength having those short, little, pithy ideas. Here's the concept. Let me give you an example. Let me recap it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And I think it's so much easier for people to digest versus things that are much more flowery or redundant, or a lot of people have the tendency to, I think there's two different talking styles, and there's the one that, has that long,
yep.
It's very Latino culture is very much like this. Well, how are you today? And their response would be, well, my daughter drove me to the doctor yesterday.
I hate that.
And there's a huge story that comes until they say,
yeah.
I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
Where being able to be direct and say, I'm doing
yep.
fine, or here's a way to help you build your confidence, here's a way for you to help you build your charisma, very simple, to the point, I think is much more helpful for people.
Well, I hope so. It has gotten really good feedback. I ran into somebody just recently who came up to me at a Chamber of Commerce meeting and said, I have to tell you, I didn't like your book.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, you didn't really have to tell me that. But that was the first person who'd actually said that to me directly. What I know is you're not really an author until you have people who don't like your book. So I was happy. I said, yes.
It's a great way to take it. And for our listeners out there, the Empowerment Show, so here's a great way to empower yourself is when, instead of looking at it as an attack, it's you've made it.
Well, that really was a thing that we got in our coaching program. Larry Winget is a very polarizing guy. People slavishly adore him, and people send him threats, right? And it covers the spectrum. And his conviction is, and I actually think he's right about this, you have to have people who don't like you in order to have people who really, really like you. If you're trying to appeal as a speaker, as an author, as a radio show host, if you're trying to just appeal to the mushy middle, you're never going to break out.
Absolutely. And in apathy, there's no way to engage with it. I used to do theater back in college. And the biggest compliment I ever received on something I directed was somebody who said, I would never see that again. It was too disturbing. It upset me. I didn't like it. And I went, I did my job.
Yes,
that's
great.
Awesome.
Yeah. I used to work for a program director at WLS when I was a talk show host who would come into the studio screaming at me, you got to be mean, CJ, make them hate you, CJ. And one of the reasons I was kind of a mediocre talk show host is that I was really uncomfortable with that. I wanted to be liked too much to be successful. The really successful talk show hosts don't care if you like them or not. They care if you listen, but they don't care if you like them. And that was a big lesson for me. And as I listened to Larry talk about being an author and a speaker, I went back to that. This is something where I need to really grow up, right, and be okay with not being liked.
And let's talk about that in terms of, the idea of being strong enough to not be liked. One of the concepts I liked in your book was the two types of stage presence. Or charisma. Yeah. And that I envy the people. I think you're a very outgoing person. You light up a room. And there's people like myself, and I've had some incredible guests on my show, but they were terrified to speak up.
Yeah.
And you talk about them as well, and there's a way to utilize that.
There is, and I think it's really important, because what I found when I started saying that I was writing a book about confidence and charisma, a boatload of people said to me, you can't learn charisma. You've either got it or you don't. And people have an association between charisma and being outgoing or being kind of sparkly, Mm-hmm. And some people are like that. They're extroverts and they're articulate and maybe bordering on glib. And there is a way to be charismatic doing that. You can really attract a following. But I don't think it's the only path to charisma. And I'm not even sure it's the most effective one. So I framed that as shining, because, the book is Show Up and Shine. So shine is kind of a metaphor for this charisma, or this sense of getting attention and getting comfortable with it. That shining like the sun is lighting up the room, right? Putting it all out there and getting the attention and warming things up. But it's possible also to shine like the moon. And the moon does not generate its own light or heat. The moon reflects the light and heat from other bodies. I think some of the most charismatic people are people who listen well and who give you their full attention when you speak. And that is magnetic. When somebody really feels that, most of us go through a whole day and hardly ever feel that anybody's listening to us.
That's true.
It really is true, and it's kind of sad. And so if you're the person who can really tune in to someone else and give them that gift, you have all the charisma you need.
So that's amazing to look at it that way, because I think so many of the books that I've read before, or throughout time, everything about confidence and charisma has always been, well, you've got to just go up there and face your fears and get over it.
Yeah.
And what I really liked about your concept is, I think it's allowing people to be their authentic self.
I had a big debate with a Facebook follower about whether charisma can be cultivated, and if it's cultivated, then it's fake, was his view. And the best thing is to be authentic. And see, I just disagree. I mean, I think truly charismatic people are authentic. Somebody who is vivacious and even talkative, and they've got a big personality, but they don't listen at all. They may or may not be authentic, but they're not charismatic. People are not drawn to that. In fact, people are turned off by that, right?
Right.
We sort of pull away when we feel like somebody is trying too hard or over emoting, or
right.
We don't. So I like this idea of cultivating what's authentically yours and using that as your way to connect with people and to draw people to you.
Right. And I know when you were writing this book, you really looked at it towards women.
Yes, I did write a book specifically for women.
And why was that? Because
I think there is a set of behaviors that are common for women that hide our light under a bushel basket. Mm-hmm. And it's not that men have all the confidence and charisma they need. Many don't. And it's not that I think that their way is right and women's way is wrong. But I think, so for example, for women, it's really common to be using language that diminishes what we say. So we put in padding, like we say it's kind of this, or it's sort of that, or it's only something else. I just want to say words that minimize our content, or that put in extra softening.
Right. It's that we were not standing up for what it is that what our intention is.
Yes. I don't think that is as common for men. There are men who do it, but it's not as generally common. And so those are the kinds of habits that I wanted to address, because I think they get in the way of confidence. They not only make us seem less confident, but we hear our own language and we hear ourselves hedging what we're saying, and it reduces our confidence. So that's why I wrote the book for women. I coach men, I speak to men, I like men. And one of the things that's been funny to me is, it occurred to me later that I had made a tactical error in writing a book for women, because as I'm doing more and more speaking, I find that I often draw men. somebody said to me it's because of the way I hold a stage, and it may be, right, that men are really comfortable with me. So I like men, I'm not against men, and maybe I'll write a book for them someday, but this book really addressed some specific things for women.
And I think that's really, it's great that you bring up, I know you talk about many different points on building your presence, and I want you to talk a little bit about what is presence,
okay,
and what are those elements. But I love what you bring up about word choice, because I think so many of us are not aware that we're diminishing ourselves by trying to be the nice, good girl, and using those words that actually soften our blow. And it doesn't need to be a blow,
Well, but it could be, and sometimes it should be,
right.
And it ought not be softened. And I think you're right. It all has everything to do with trying to be nice. I'm not against being nice, but sometimes you need to be strong,
right,
and speak your truth, and stuff that gets in the way of that makes us come off as less confident, and also makes us feel less confident. Presence, as I think about it, is sort of the total of what people see when they look at you, and what people hear when you speak, and how you make them feel. So in the 60s, we used to say good vibes and bad vibes. It's kind of like that. It's a vibration. And everybody has one. Some people's just isn't very strong, right? They come through an event and you barely know they were there. And some people their vibration is different. And you notice them, you're drawn to them, you want to be around them. That's presence. And I believe everybody can get that. I mean, I really do. I don't think it's that, some people talk about leadership presence or executive presence, and they really do talk about it as if it's a quality that is innate for certain people and the rest of us are out of luck. I don't think so.
So what are ways that we can cultivate our presence? If we're the wallflower, or maybe, I don't know if you cover this or not, but if we have a negative presence, if we're repelling people with the energy that we're putting off.
Yeah, and there is that, right? And that's a real challenge. And I think part of the way to work with that is to be open to even seek really candid feedback. And there aren't so many people who will be candid about that, but if you can find one, it's very, very helpful. I think in terms of cranking up presence for people who feel like they're not noticed or not heard, a lot of it has to do with posture. And yeah, exactly.
As I straighten up in my chair.
Well, and we're talking here, and I noticed me too, leaning in, kind of coming over, like getting closer to you, which is a normal thing for two people having a conversation to do. But if I wanted to generate confidence or convey confidence, I would not be hunching over the table. I would be sitting with my feet flat on the floor and my butt firmly in the chair and my spine straight. And a way to think about it is your sit bones. So anybody who does yoga knows about sitting on their sit bones. So when I sit on the front of my sit bones, my pelvis tilts down a little bit, my spine straightens, my shoulders drop. It's sort of having a firm base. And when I roll to the back of my sit bones, because you're here with me, you can see the difference, right? My spine curves a little bit, my shoulders come forward. My voice is less strong automatically because my chest is not open.
Right.
Yeah. So this is where you start and it's true whether you're standing or seated. For people who do yoga, I often remind about mountain pose. So when you're in mountain, you're firm, you're solid, you're grounded. And from there, it's like you pull the energy up from the earth. And it does actually start to radiate from you. I know that sounds a little woo-woo, but it's just the truth.
It's just the truth. It doesn't matter where it comes or what it sounds like. And that's what I found fascinating, too, about your perspective on confidence and charisma, is that it's the whole package. And it's awareness. It's not just about what you say or how you say it. It's about your actual physical presence. And we were talking a little bit before we got on the air about working with people, being aware of their dress, their look, and how that's being read by others. I know my favorite show just went off the air, What Not to Wear.
Oh, no, I loved What Not to Wear.
And, it's not about looking pretty or about dressing yourself for someone else, but it's about really embracing yourself and doing the best with it and being proud of it and using your sit bones and your mountain pose to own it. And it was amazing if you've ever watched that show, and if you could see Catherine here, to go between not having that confidence and trying to kind of hide in yourself versus finally wearing your own skin with confidence.
When I speak, I often talk about, for women in particular, this thing about owning our space, because so many women are uncomfortable with that. So for years, I was self-conscious about taking up so much space, so I would try to draw myself in. So here's what I will ask you to, because everybody else can't see me, you can speak for them. When I do this, it does not make me thin.
It does not.
To the contrary, it makes me round, right?
Right. When you hunch your shoulders in and tuck your head down and try to hide in the space, you become a boulder.
Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah.
So if I sit all the way up and square off my shoulders, I am bigger, but oddly, at the same time, thinner, right?
Well, you're extending, you're lengthening.
So for women who are self-conscious about weight, this is a challenge. For women who were the tallest girl in the 5th grade and they got in the habit of hunching over, this is a challenge. For women whose brothers made fun of them when they developed breasts and they got in the habit of rolling their shoulders and kind of hiding that part of them, this is a challenge. And I had somebody not long ago, I was doing a workshop at City Hall, and somebody said, well, I always feel if I have my shoulders back, it's like I'm trying to stick my breasts out. And it made her really self-conscious. And as I looked at her, I thought, it doesn't look anything like you're sticking anything out. It just looks like you're straight and you're grounded and you're owning your space and occupying your space and comfortable in your own skin. This is a great thing.
Right.
And getting comfortable with that, it takes a little bit of practice for people, but it's very doable. Really that's not a huge change for someone to make for the benefit that it provides.
And I noticed that when you spoke, when I saw you speak a few months ago, and you were showing it as a speaker at the front of the room, and when you hid yourself and took that diminutive position, and then your entire voice changed, the whole room shifted when you were able to own that space and open yourself up.
I do that with audiences. I spoke in a room over the weekend where there were 60 people in the room, and that was part of the thing. All right, so put your feet on the floor, settle yourself in the chair, straighten your spine, put your head straight up and down, and you can feel the energy in its big shifting in the room as people do that. And you can just see their faces shine, and it's amazing. So it takes a little bit of conscious effort for people to switch into that, but it is really the beginning of becoming more charismatic and feeling more confident. And there's a big piece. How much time do we? I feel like I've been talking forever.
6 minutes.
Oh, great. So what I would do is, and I just don't have time to get into the whole story, but there is research from Harvard, from the Harvard School of Business. A social psychologist named Amy Cuddy started looking into students in business school who shrunk, who didn't participate. And her question was, do they shrink because they're not confident, or are they not confident because they shrink? And so she designed an experiment, which I wrote about in my book, so there you go, and found that it was true, that people's posture changes their body chemistry. Open, expansive postures increase your testosterone, which is associated with confidence and dominance, and decrease cortisol, which is associated with stress. And hunched over, drawn in, contracted postures do the opposite. So if you spend 2 minutes in a hunched over, drawn in, make yourself small kind of pose, you will be more stressed out and less confident.
That is so powerful.
Isn't it?
That is so, I've never heard of that correlation. I mean, the testosterone, that's great for confidence, but me with my practice and the people that I work with, the idea that the stress, that you're causing more stress keeping yourself small versus owning your space, that is enormous.
It is enormous. And what I like about it is it's measurable. It's an endocrine profile. It's scientific. I've been telling clients for years, you will feel so much better if you'll just sit up straight. Now I have proof.
Exactly.
And I love it because it's simple, because if you have something coming up that is challenging, like a job interview or a speech or a sales call or whatever it is that makes you feel like, not in my stomach, if you do 2 minutes of an open, expansive posture, seated or standing, with Amy Cuddy demonstrates the Wonder Woman posture, standing up with her hands on her hips. 2 minutes, and you will literally feel more confident, and your performance will be better.
And those 2 minutes are powerful. I'm all about how the body affects the mind, and the mind affects the body. And there was something I read, and I don't have the study from it, but it was about smiling. That smiling can also release the feel-good vibes and can change your body chemistry.
Absolutely. Facial feedback is what that's called, and it's very clearly demonstrated in scientific tests that if you smile, it even works if you hold a pencil sideways like this in your teeth, which I have started doing. I used to always put a pencil, the end of the pen, in my mouth. If you do this, like with a pencil between your teeth.
Which looks really nice, by the way.
It's charming. But the muscles do the same thing that they do in a natural smile. And so doing that will actually increase endorphins and make you feel better.
And I did, there was a job that I used to work at that was about an hour away. And it was a stressful job, and I'd have my hour drive home, and I know I looked like an idiot, but I would smile. I would force myself to smile all the way home.
I love that.
And by the time I got home, I could be there with my family versus having that bad mood follow me home.
There's some research that people who have had Botox are happier because they can't frown, right? So it just flips it on its head. If your frown response is mitigated, your reaction to negative stimuli is slowed down. You just don't get as pissed off about stuff because you can't. Or your face can't show it anyway.
I think that's the only thing that I've heard so far that would make me even consider getting Botox.
Isn't it great? I love this stuff. So, the body thing is very powerful.
So we've only got 2 minutes.
Okay.
So I want to make sure, where can people get your book or hear you speak? Or I know you've got some other things coming up. So
I do.
Know.
So the book is on Amazon. It's available in paperback, Kindle, ebook, and they could also pick it up when I speak. I do a lot of local women's groups, chambers, and that kind of thing. I'm speaking at a NAWBO networking group on January 10th in Schaumburg. December, kind of a slow month for speakers. I'm very excited to be coaching in Suzanne and Larry's Hell Yeah Star program. So I'll be at their boot camp the end of January, coaching would-be stars about how to have more of this presence we're talking about. And, of course, I do individual coaching, so you can find me on the web or any of that jazz and be in touch, because this is the kind of stuff that I coach my clients to cultivate and develop, so that not just so they can feel better, although feeling better is nice, but so they can build their business. Because guess what? When you have confidence and charisma, you draw way more clients. Exactly.
And that's what I love, too. I would really recommend this book, not just for people who need to speak or want to speak on the stage, but about your everywhere in your work life and your personal life and building up that presence.
Yeah, and that's why my coaching program is called Confidence, Charisma, and Cash. Turn more prospects into profits.
Well, that is fabulous, Catherine.
I love it.
Catherine Johns, thank you so much for being on the Empowerment Show.
Well, thank you. I feel empowered just being here, Melissa.
Well, you brought it on. You showed up and you shone.
I am shining, baby.
You are shining. Thank you so much for being on, and best of luck with everything you've got going on.
Join Melissa Heisler next week right here at The Empowerment Show on the Linked Local Network. Link locally, connect globally. Learn about the next show and listen to previous shows at linkedlocalnetwork.com/empowerment. Join the conversation at facebook.com/The Empowerment Show or twitter.com/Empowerment Show.